Okay, welcome back to Jack Sports Television. I'm Brian Lyle with my partner in crime, Damian Bell. And what we've been doing today, because Derek Brooks officially retired today and we're based out of Tampa Bay, Florida, we decided, yeah, Derek Brooks, to me, Damian, both agree, certainly a first ballot Hall of Famer. Warren Sapp, certainly a first ballot Hall of Famer. Just did a segment on John Lynch, and I think he's a ballot guy, and I think you agree with that. We disagree a little bit on Rondé Barber. I think he's a ballot guy, and maybe we'll get in one day, but to me, he's just a ballot guy. I know you think a little bit different. Last guy, Simeon Rice, another great football player, okay? Started his career out of Illinois, all right, fighting Illini, drafted with the Cardinals, sack machine, finished his career, 12 years, okay? 122 sacks. And just to let you know, I don't know if you knew this, he was playing last year for the New York Sentinels in the United Football League. And don't know how he did. I have to look that up, but that's not going to get you into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He did put up some big stats, though. Okay, second fastest to 100 sacks. Reggie White was first. I think he's a ballot guy. What do you think?
He's a Hall of Famer, and I'll tell you why. Because the NFL, over the broad 80-plus year history, has always been about what you did on the field in that NFL game. And when you go back to the last 7 to 15 years, the NFL has been about drafting the right guy that can go from dominating on the college field to dominating on the NFL field. And any number of geniuses, from the analysts, the Mel Kipers, the ESPN experts, the NFL Network experts, all spend hours at a time trying to tell you this guy can go from college and dominating to dominating in the NFL. Simeon Rice is the one defensive end that I can think of that went from dominating in Illinois to, no doubt, dominating in the NFL. He did it for good teams. He did it for bad teams. He did it with different situations. He got sacks wherever he was, regardless of who was lined up beside him. And you can say that lining up next to Eric Swan gives you an advantage because everybody would rather block the 400-pound guy than the little light guy on the edge. He still got his sacks. You take him to Tampa, everybody would rather block the loudmouth under tackle rather than come get Simeon. He still got sacks. When you bothered him about stopping the run, you didn't see running the ball against Simeon. He proved that that defense would be just as watertight with him being there, bringing the mouth, bringing the philosophy, bringing his unusual way of speak, but still doing it on the field. And when I think of Simeon Rice and the other Hall of Fame defensive ends that are there, like your Reggie Whites, like your Richard Dents and the other ones in there, you know, the consistent thing is Simeon is the first person to do it going from college to the NFL. And that means something these days because all you got to do is say NFL draft, who's the next so-and-so, and watch people talk about the draft. He did it here at this school, so he'll do it in the NFL. Simeon Rice did it. So to me, that gives him a good push towards that first ballot Hall of Fame.
Well, okay, I got other guys who did it in college and guys who I would take over Simeon Rice who aren't in the Hall of Fame. Chris Dolman. Okay, Chris Dolman did it at University of Pitt Panthers. He was a beast.
Who was talking about Chris Dolman coming out of college?
Chris Dolman was All-American coming out of college.
Who, when you watched that draft that day and you heard Chris Dolman going to the Minnesota Vikings, who said, "Oh, that's a can't-miss hit right there"?
Chris Dolman was a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Okay, so they based the same thing out. All I'm saying is Chris Dolman, 150 sacks, far more productive, far more balanced against the run. A member of the 1990s All-Decade Team, something Simeon never got. Okay, so I got to take Chris Dolman over Simeon Rice any day of the week. Neil Smith out in Nebraska. I remember watching Dolman, and I remember watching Neil Smith, more so Neil Smith, because obviously I was a little bit older then to watch Neil Smith. Much better against the run and much more, 104 and a half sacks. So basically they're kind of a wash as far as sacks. Neil Smith was a beast out in Nebraska, okay? And Richard Dent. Dent's not in the Hall of Fame. It's mind-boggling how he's not in the Hall of Fame, okay? MVP of Super Bowl 20, okay? All right? A member and a force of probably arguably the greatest defense of all time. And this is one of the points I'm trying to make with the Bucs. Why all of a sudden are there going to be 5 guys from that defense, okay, when you got a Chicago Bears defense that only has, look who they have. They have Dan Hampton and Iron Mike Singletary, okay? That Bears defense is way better than the Bucs defense. All right, it's a crime. Wilbur Marshall's not in the Hall of Fame. Okay, it's an absolute crime potentially why David Duerson is not in the Hall of Fame. Okay, there's other guys, maybe Gary Fensick. All right, the point I'm trying to make is I think Simeon certainly good enough to be on a ballot. All right, but I just see no reason, especially when Richard Dent's not in the Hall of Fame, which is mind-boggling. It's like, what do you have to do to get in the Hall of Fame? All right, Dolman, what does he have to do? Neil Smith, okay? All right, I don't know if Neil Smith is going to make the Hall of Fame. I'm just making the case. I thought he was a better football player than Simeon Rice. So, again, it's a great accomplishment to get a ballot. But I think, unfortunately for Simeon, I'm not going to say unfortunately, because that's fortunate to get a ballot. I just think it stops there.
And, the biggest thing Simeon has working against him, once again, is the NFL going to keep rewarding these teams for having great players, which, we saw him do it with the Cowboys. We saw him do it with the Steelers. We might slowly see them do it with the New England Patriots, because you mentioned Ty Law and company and Rodney Harrison and all those guys. And you got to wonder if they're going to reward the system or the player.
No, I don't mean to cut you up, but let me ask you this. Okay, you follow football. Who would you rather have? Charles Haley? How in the world is Haley not in the Hall of Fame, or Simeon Rice? I'm taking Charles Haley any day of the week over Simeon Rice.
Well, that's not a hard sell. I mean, Charles Haley definitely.
Okay, but one of the things that is messed up about the Hall of Fame, all right, I don't know how Howie Long's in the Hall of Fame. I really don't, especially on the first ballot. Okay, because you can make the argument. I mean, listen, Howie, a balanced tackle, defensive tackle slash defensive end. I think his high for sacks was like 11.5. So, quite frankly, I probably would take Simeon Rice over Howie Long, especially there were some years out in Oakland where Greg Townsend was the better defensive end. So you just look at that and you say, how in the heck Howie Long is in the Hall of Fame, and yet Simeon Rice or Richard Dent or Neil Smith or Chris Dolman isn't? There are some politics within the Hall of Fame, and that's a tough argument to make against Simeon Rice, especially when that happens.
Well, I mean, with the Hall of Fame, there's an elite status that separates you from very good, decent, functional, and, you can put Simeon Rice in all of those categories. He was definitely functional. He went from different defenses.
He was a beast.
Yeah, he was a beast. He was definitely in the elite status, maybe for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, but he did what no other defensive ends could do over that stretch and getting the team to an elite status. When the Bucs brought in Simeon Rice, there was never a question, could he do what he did at Arizona? Would he be a problem fitting in with this defense? He clicked. He got his stuff done. He was the only one that didn't have a drop-off, short of the last year when he got injured. But as far as his productivity coming from Arizona, that got him all the attention to what he did once the Bucs won the Super Bowl, no drop-off. And for a Hall of Fame resume to have that kind of consistency is definitely rewardable.
Okay, great information today. We've got more coming up on Jack Sports Television. To sum everything up, we've got Derek Brooks, yes. We've got Warren Sapp, no. I've got John Lynch on a ballot. I've got Rondé Barber on a ballot. Simeon Rice I've got on a ballot as well. And stay tuned for more. We got Jack Sports Television. We've got NASCAR talk. We've got golf talk. Plenty more. I'm Brian Lyle, Damian Bell, and we're